Start with a clap.
Thank you. I want to start off with something to help us get a little perspective on life. This is a letter that was written to a mother whose daughter had been away from school for 4 months and she had not heard from her daughter. Dear mother, sorry I haven't written these last 4 months. The reason is because of a brain operation I had. It was the result of a concussion I got it when I jumped from the 4th story of the dormitory when it caught on fire. Fortunately, a young service station attendant across the street saw the fire, called the fire department and the ambulance, and got me to the hospital on time. While I was in the hospital, he visited me quite regularly. When I was released, I had no place to go. He very nicely invited me to share his apartment. Yes, Mother, I am pregnant. I am in love. And we do plan to get married. The only reason we haven't already is because of some silly disease he has and he failed the blood test. Signed, your loving daughter. P.S. Please turn other side. Mom quickly turns the paper over. Now, Mom, this is just to let you know that I didn't have a brain operation. Because I didn't get a concussion, because I didn't jump from the dormitory, because it didn't catch on fire. I hadn't been in the hospital. I'm not in love, and I'm certainly not pregnant. And I'm sure not going to get married. But I did make a D in English and an F in history, and I thought you should see it in the right perspective. Steve has invited me back to Cuyamaca College to tell my story. And anytime you tell your story, you run the risk of maybe coming off as if you were bragging, but I can honestly tell you that is not my heart at all. My heart is one of gratitude. And I want to briefly tell you about my family. Steve somewhat introduced them to you when he put them on the spot. I've been married for 35 years, one wife, and have 5 children, and picked up a son-in-law a couple years ago. Though she doesn't like it when I say this, we both came from the wrong side of the tracks. About the only thing either one of us learned from our original families is don't eat with your elbows on the table. They didn't teach us one thing to possibly succeed in life. Julie's family officially disintegrated when she was 8. My family officially disintegrated when I was 13, when the divorce occurred. When I was 15, the real tragedy occurred. On Christmas Eve of my sophomore year in high school, my father told me he wasn't my father and asked me to leave the house. Basically, that's a nice way of saying kicked me out. So over Christmas break, as a sophomore in high school, I got a new school, a new city, a new apartment, and no friends. That's how I started the new year at my sophomore year in high school. Throughout this story, I'll give you a few important principles that separate the winners from the whiners. People like to talk about the haves and the have-nots. I like to talk about the doers and the do-nots. The first important principle is it doesn't matter where you start out in life. That does not have to determine where you end up. To say that I wasn't voted the most likely to succeed in high school is a severe understatement. I also wasn't voted most athletic. And you can obviously tell I wasn't voted best dressed either. But matter of fact, I had to fight to maintain my low C average. I had to work hard to do that. I was 13 years old. Excuse me. I was 13 years old, not long ago. I remember vividly the day I decided that I would be successful. I was 13 years old. My brothers and I were at the boys club, where we spent most days and most nights during the summer, because being a product of divorce and nobody to watch us, that's what we did. On this particular day, every child in the green line, every child in the boys club was drinking a Coke, except for my brothers and I. We didn't have a quarter for a Coke. We never had a quarter for a Coke. At that very moment, I decided I would not raise my children that way, and I didn't. At about the age of 16, I knew that I wanted to have a business. I knew that I wanted to be a businessman. I decided that at the age of 16. I kind of looked around and determined there was 3 ways to make money, as I saw it as a 16-year-old. You get a college degree, you could become a salesman, or you could start a business. That was kind of my 16-year-old thinking. Well, being raised in a home where they never gave you a compliment, and nobody ever even took a college course in my family. And to this day, I don't know that any of my brothers and sisters or Julie's sisters or anybody in the family has ever taken one college course. So in our bloodline, there wasn't even a thought that you go to college. I also didn't have the confidence to believe that I could do it. I had myself convinced that I wasn't smart enough. Then I also, without having any confidence, I decided I wouldn't be able to sell, so that only left becoming a businessman. It was kind of the process of elimination. Again, the first point is where you start out in life doesn't have to determine where you end up in life. The second principle is you have to be able and willing to persevere. Persevere simply means you don't stop. For Julie and I, this meant working many hours, very hard work with very, very little pay. Prior to starting our business, we were both working between 75 and 100 hours a week. I was working full-time at the Otay Water District. Julie was working full-time as a nurse. I was working weekends at Aunt Emma's cooking pancakes, and Julie was working at a deli on Mollison Avenue, El Cajon, making sandwiches at night. And we were doing this we were trying to save money because we wanted to start a business. About this time, I got the bright idea that we should try to become a caretaker. If we could find a place where we could live for free, I thought that would be good. Plus, we were getting kind of bored. So I started looking in the newspaper, and I looked in the newspaper every day for 6 months until I finally found not 1 but 2 ads for caretakers. Looked in the paper every day for 6 months. And we are talking about perseverance here. Anyway, so we lined up this interview. On the way over to the interview, I remember telling Julie, we're going to convince this millionaire to hire us to take care of his estate, which would mean I would take care of the grounds of about 1 acre. Julie would take care of, or help with his elderly mom, taking her to the hairdresser and shopping, and Julie would also clean her house. I also remember in the winter months setting up lights to work on this estate because it gets dark at 5 o'clock and that just wasn't enough daylight. So I would set lights up all over this orchard and I'd be out there working in the dark. We did this for about 2 years. We eventually saved up enough money to start our business. Well, at least we thought we saved up enough money to start our business. We were both still working an obnoxious amount of hours, but at this point we had started the business. And the way we actually started the business was we put ads in the penny saver. That was our advertising budget, ads in the penny saver. I can still remember Julie was working the graveyard shift at Grossmont Hospital. And she would get off work from working graveyard shift and come and work with me on the mowing crew after working all night with no sleep. She also did this in the hot El Cajon heat, and she did it at one point when she was pregnant with our oldest daughter, Joanna. She was 8 months pregnant at the time. At one of these times, we're out mowing grass. Part of her job, I say job, I don't know, a job usually indicates you're getting paid. She wasn't getting paid, but part of her contribution was she drove all the stuff to the dump. We did a lot of hauling in these days. We had this blue truck, and we built racks all the way to the top. We could stack and tie and secure a pickup truck with 10 feet high. Julie's under 5 feet high. So do the math. So we sent her to the dump. Now this did provide some memories. Most of them weren't good. Like the time she got stopped by the highway patrol for speeding. The reason she was speeding, we only gave her 20 minutes to get to the dump. It takes 30. And she knew she couldn't come back with the truck full because there was another load for the next day. Another time she got stopped by the highway patrol because I didn't secure the truck well enough and crap was falling off of the truck as she was driving down the road. Another time she's at the dump and we have so much stuff on this truck she gets stuck in the mud. So she has to go get the driver of the drivers, great big bulldozers, to come over and jerk her out of the mud. Those were the good old days. Somebody said about the good old days is the best thing about the good old days is they're gone. Or as somebody said, the good old days, like the good old boys, they weren't all that good. So the business began to grow. And with all the enthusiasm and ignorance of youth, we thought life would get easier. Little did we know. As our business began to grow, we quickly learned that not everyone pays their bills on time. We quickly ran out of money. We experienced severe financial stress. I vividly remember sleepless nights, literally being sick to my stomach. That's a nice way of saying throwing up. We quickly got behind on all of our payments to all of our vendors. We owed the IRS money. Even though we had made arrangements to pay them, they have their own ways of doing business, and they came and levied our business account and our personal account. Levy simply means they electronically take all your money. They did this even though we had an arrangement made of when we would pay them. They took all of our money on the day we were supposed to pay our employees. Not to mention, on this very day, I had driven to Rancho Bernardo to collect a check from somebody that was long overdue, drove to Rancho Bernardo and got back to the bank because I had to make a deposit so the checks we wrote yesterday wouldn't bounce. So I told the banker, please hand post this check, which means you're going to write checks on it. Well, because I said that was the same day that the IRS levied my account. Had I just put the deposit in the bank, the IRS couldn't have got that one. But because I said, hand post this check, I actually made a collection for the IRS. Back in this day, I had bounced so many checks that the bank had threatened to kick me out. I didn't particularly care. I figured I'd get another bank. So I went to a couple other banks, and guess what? I wouldn't be able to get another bank account. Nobody was going to want my business because my banking record was too bad. So the bank told me if I bounced one more check, they're going to kick me out. I would essentially be out of business. You have to have a checking account to do business. Well, sure enough, the bank calls and I'm overdrawn. In the banking world, you have till 1 o'clock to make a check good. I have no idea what's so important about 1 o'clock to those people.